Okay, I've got a tutorial for you guys today. I've been messing around with these abstract backgrounds I've been making. And the whole point of these is just to create backgrounds that I can use in artwork, but are 100% generated for the most part in Photoshop. There's no stock art, no stock photography, nothing dragged in. So as I make these things, I put them up for sale on my shop with the full PSDs, huge files that are layered that you can purchase there. But as I'm kind of coming across these little effects that I can pull out of here and turn into tutorials, I decided to kind of make a series for you guys where I'm just kind of showing you how to do some of these effects, and maybe you can build this stuff on your own and use it for something. Who knows? But today I wanted to focus on kind of this flame little nebula space thing that you're seeing kind of sporadically in here, like the upper left hand side and the middle one. So I'm going to show you how to kind of recreate something similar and to get an effect like that you can pull into other artwork and use it pretty much wherever you want. So let's go ahead and I'm going to minimize this and let's create a new document. So File, New, and we're going to create a new document that's 1200 pixels wide by 1200 pixels tall at 72 dpi, ppi, or whatever that is. Click OK. So let's go ahead and kind of drag this out so we can see our whole canvas and get cooking. All right, so I'm going to zoom in once, and let's go ahead. And the first thing I like to do is to create a kind of a textured background to start things off with. Let's go ahead and I'm going to create a, we're going to do a noise layer. So let's set our background color to a real dark gray, almost black. So this one is RGB value 131313, and I'm going to click OK. And because I set that as my background color on a PC, I can use a shortcut, and I highly recommend learning your shortcuts. They will make your workflow a whole lot quicker. If you press Control Delete, it will fill that background in with, well, almost black. And then we're going to go ahead and give it some noise. So if you go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and we're going to bump this up a little bit. Let's see, that's way too far. Let's do 8%. It's about good. And I've got the distribution set to Gaussian, and monochromatic is checked on. Okay. So we have kind of our textured background going. Let's create a new layer by pressing this goofy new layer button. And we're going to start creating kind of our background elements that, well, the background to our nebula thing, if that makes any sense. So we're going to go to our lasso tool. There we go, and we want to turn the feathering on. So if you look at the upper left hand side, if you're using CS6 and you have the default layout, I think it's the default layout, and or above, you can set the feather, and let's go ahead and set it to, let's go to 70 pixels. All right, and let's just kind of draw out a kind of a bean shaped thing like that. There we go. I'm going to kind of move this over. All right, so you'd be amazed how many of these effects start out with the clouds filter that you can find in Photoshop. It's a really useful tool when creating effects. But first, we got to set our foreground and background colors for the clouds. And let's go ahead and set our foreground color, and we're going to pick kind of this dark indigo type color. So I'm going to drag my color slider kind of there, right? And I'm going to pick a dark indigo-ish color. There we go. So my hex value for that, or my RGB value, let's stick to that, is 30 for red, 52 for green, and 60 for blue. And RGB is down here right above the hex value, which is that number thing. So let's click OK. Now let's, for the background, we'll set that to all the way black this time, so all zeros for everything, and click OK there. And then go to Filter, Render, Clouds. Ooh, all right, we got kind of this spooky cloud thing going. That's going to work. All right, so press Control D or go to Select, Deselect to get rid of our selection there. And I want a duplicate layer of this basically. So I'm going to press Control J for a copy of that layer. And let's go ahead and hide the layer it just created. And we're going to focus on this background layer. Now we're going to kind of give this little like topographic looking thing behind it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to slightly move this down, and actually Control Z, let's leave it where it is in case this filter does something funny. So what I like to do is kind of make another little kind of, I don't know, effect going on behind everything. So let's go to Filter, Stylize, find edges. And actually, find edges is a filter that I like to use a lot. So you'll kind of see what it does here. You're probably looking at, why is this a big white blur thing? Okay, so we're going to fix that. We're going to go to Image, Adjustments, Levels. All right, so now you get this black and white spectrum kind of mountainy thing. All right, so what you want to do is you want to grab that left-hand most arrow and drag it pretty far in until you get into the spectrum, and you're going to see what it's doing. You can see that it almost looks like a fingerprint now, or a topographic type map. So you want to pull that in, kind of like that, and really make those edges that we just created show. So I'm going to press OK. There we go. And I'm going to desaturate this. So let's go to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. And you'll kind of see this effect here. All right, so now I'm going to move this kind of down. Let's turn our other layer on so we can see kind of where it is. All right, maybe kind of down there. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the opacity down on it. So I'm just going to grab the opacity slider and I'm going to turn it down. Let's do about, I don't know, 50%. And then, or let's go back to about 70. All right. So we're also going to go back and we're going to invert this. So let's go to Image, Adjustments, Invert. That's kind of cool. All right. It's got this kind of glow effect around it. And it's going to help give a little more depth to our illustration here, or to our design. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the opacity down a little bit more. There we go, and that kind of breaks things up a little bit, so that's kind of cool. Let's go ahead and turn the layer above back on and move that kind of where we want it, kind of like so. And let's create let's create a layer above. Okay, now let's go back to our polygon, or our lasso tool. Sorry, polygon tool is the other one. And let's create a smaller kind of shape, just kind of right on top of our blue and black cloud layer. All right, so now we want to create clouds again, but what we're going to do is we're going to use the default colors. So the way to get back to default colors, which is just simply black foreground and white background, is you click the little default icon above your colors over here. So I'm going to click that. We're going to go to Filter, Render, Clouds. All right, we got more clouds, right? Control D to deselect that, and let's go back up to levels again. Image, Adjustments, Levels, and we got this weird mountain shape again. So let's drag the arrows in so we can really boost the contrast here and get something kind of like that. There we go, and you can see that really pulled the whites up and made the darks darker. So let's press OK. Now let's go ahead and colorize this. So we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. And this is what we're going to use to colorize it. So the way to colorize is you tick on Colorize, right? And let's make this more of an orangish. So I'm going to drag the slider down to about 27. We're going to turn the saturation up to about 68. And we're going to bump the lightness up just a hair to plus 12. And let's start with something like that. So you can see we're starting to get this effect here. Let me reopen that so you can see kind of what's going on here, and we're getting closer. So I'm going to create a new layer. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to duplicate this fire layer, Control J, and you'll see that really brighten it up. So this one you can kind of transform it a little bit. Just have fun, see what you can do, and kind of break things up. Control T to transform. And I think I'm just going to kind of scale it down. I'm going to rotate it slightly so we get kind of layers of this effect going on. Maybe something like that. Just offset it just a hair. Okay. So now let's go ahead and get kind of the sparks that we're going to be using on top of this thing. So let's create a new layer. And now that I'm looking at the piece come together, I'm realizing that my background texture is probably a little too heavy. So I'm going to go back to the background, and I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're going to blur it just a hair. So I'm going to do one, let's do two, like that. That'll kind of break things up. All right, so we're going to go back to our topmost layer, and we're going to create some sparks. So let's pick kind of a bright yellow for now. Maybe something like here. So let's start with this. I got 254 for red, 255 for green, and 200 for blue. I'm going to press OK. Now let's go to your brush tool. All right, and we're going to create a new brush that's going to do this scattering effect. Now everything's done in Photoshop. There's no, we're not using the tablet. We're just using a mouse. So let's go ahead and go to Window, Brush, and that's going to open up our presets here. You can see I've already been kind of playing around with brushes. So the first thing you want to turn on is brush tip shape. All right, and you should just have a, let's just start over. We want a soft round brush. So that's what you would see, just your generic soft round brush. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to turn spacing up. And let's turn it up to about, let's look at around almost 200% for now. Okay. Size, let's turn the size down to about, let's start at 15. Hardness, let's turn that up just a hair, maybe around 30%. Okay, so now let's click on Shape Dynamics. Now Shape Dynamics allows you to really kind of randomize stuff. So size jitter, I have it at 15. That looks about good. Minimum diameter is at 24. I like that. Angle jitter is at 86. Yeah, it looks good. Roundness 73, minimum roundness 25. I like that for now. You can maybe click one of these on and off if you want to, so you can flip X jitter or flip Y jitter. Now let's turn on scattering. Okay, scattering is really what's going to break up these sparks. So the count I have at 1, I've got the scatter itself set to 1000%, and count jitter, let's go 20%. Let's see, do we want to turn the count up? No, let's leave the count at 1. So let's go back to Shape Dynamics. Actually, let's go back to the brush tip shape, and we're going to kind of play around with scattering a bit more. Okay, we kind of want these things to, this is going to be kind of subtle. So I just turned spacing back up to 310%. Sorry, not scattering, spacing. I'll leave everything else as is. Let's go to transfer. And the opacity jitter, let's turn that up a hair. Let's do that. Well, let's turn it up to like 50%. Flow jitter, we can boost that just to, let's boost it to 40. And I think that's about good. Okay, do I want anything else in here? All right, if it's not, we'll come back. So on our new layer, let's just simply kind of do a couple spots. You'll see we're getting kind of a spark effect. All right, so now I think this brush is going to work. What we want to do is let's turn the size down a bit more to get some more variety in here. And we can do that in, can we do that in Shape Dynamics as well? Size jitter. Let's turn the size jitter up even higher. I'm going to turn it to 80%. All right, so now let's get some other smaller sparks going on. And there we go. That's kind of turning it up. All right, so just a few in there. We're going to turn the blending mode here to color dodge. And then we want to set some more sparks on top of it. Let's pick a brighter, almost white, 255, 255, 234. And again, we'll just kind of hit a couple more spots. And you start getting that nebula effect. So I think that's looking pretty good. So honestly, that's really all there is to it to start to get that look. You can really start playing with things and get something kind of crazier, but I like how this, you can see how this effect was used for one of these little elements here. And every time you run the clouds filter, play around with that, you're going to get some interesting results, and it's going to randomize and change things up. So another thing we'd like to do is above all of these layers, let's go ahead and set a brightness contrast. Let's see, is that the one I picked? Yeah, a brightness contrast layer. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to do a, down here in the I forget what it's called. What is this thing called? Adjustment layer. Ha! I won a prize. Okay, new adjustment layer. My brain is starting to fade. Let's go to hue and saturation is what I want. All right. So here we're just really going to use the saturation. Let's bump that up just a tad and really get some orange going there. And turn the blues up. We'll start with that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and create another adjustment layer. And this time we're going to use brightness and contrast above everything. So for this one, we're going to turn the brightness, we're going to turn the contrast up, and you can see that really changing. Okay, so on here, I like to kind of play around with this mask a little bit. We can use the same brush we just had, so make sure you click on the layer mask itself. Make sure that your foreground color is set to black, and go back to your brush tool. And now I'm going to turn the size up a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint out areas of that mask to get the original kind of contrast we had set. So I'm just going to kind of do a few more, and this will help break things up a little bit and kind of give some dark areas. Kind of like so, and that's looking, I think that's looking pretty cool. All right, my screen's at an angle, so I got to move to kind of see everything. Okay, so one other quick little trick I like to do is above our, we need kind of a more of a, maybe a little blast type area coming out of it. So on our topmost layer, that our sparks layer, let's create a new layer, and let's go back to our brush settings. So window, brush. Okay. Let's play with this brush again. Now you can save this out if you want. If you want to press the create a new brush, you will get this little prompt, and you can name this brush whatever you want. So let's go ahead and we're going to save the brush we had. I'm going to call it Sparks again, because I have maybe 10 different Sparks brushes now. And capture brush size in preset. You can or you can't. I'm going to go ahead and capture that, so it'll always start at 33 pixels for this one. Okay, so now what was I going to do? We're going to create kind of this little blast effect. So what we want to do is let's look at our brush tip shape again. We're going to turn the spacing way back down, probably to 1%. Let's go to scatter. We want to leave, let's turn that back on. We want to turn scatter way back down, probably 120, maybe that. Okay, transfer, let's leave that on, and I think all is good. Okay, so we're gonna do just kind of this little blob. So let's do this away from everything else for now, just to kind of see what it's gonna do. We just want to do a quick little blob like that. Now let's go ahead, and probably the easiest way to do this is actually, I'm going to redo that because I noticed my color wasn't right. So I just selected and deleted and deselected. I need white for the foreground. We still have that bright yellow, so let's go ahead and pick a white color, and let's redo our little blob, kind of like that. All right, now the easiest way for this is just to kind of drag this into the middle. Okay. And you're going to go to Filter, Blur, Radial Blur. All right, so Radial Blur, we dragged the blob to the middle, so we're going to kind of leave this as is. Now, the method you want is zoom. Quality, you can leave it as good, but let's turn the amount up. So let's turn it up to, let's turn it way up. I don't know, maybe 80. And we're going to hit OK. And let's see what that looks like. All right, so that kind of, see what it did? It kind of blurred it out, basically. It did what it did. It blurred it out. So now we're just going to kind of use this to help highlight just more of these, you know, wherever you want a white spot or a blast type thing to go. Maybe right there. I'm going to press Control J because I want two of them. And this one I'm going to press Control T and just kind of rotate it. And we're going to move this over here to give this another kind of blast area. Kind of like so. So there you go. That's pretty much all there is to it, and that's how you create that one little effect that we fit in on this piece, kind of over here and over here. Now these ones I have dimmed out a little bit more, but you can see it's kind of this flame spacey looking thing, and it's kind of cool. It makes for great little details to throw into backgrounds for some action and to make things look a little more dynamic. So this is it. I hope you got a kick out of this and might be able to use it somewhere. Again, you'd be surprised how many times the clouds filter is used on just a lot of different lighting effects and a lot of different like explosions and space and all sorts of good stuff. So I'll leave you with this one. This is the first of probably a few. I've got a couple more written down in my book here that I want to show you guys, but this one I'm just calling Abstract Fire Nebula thing. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you got a kick out of it, maybe press like, whatever. Let your friends know if they can use it too. And if you know of, or if you make use this effect for some other cool stuff, please tweet it at me on Twitter. I love seeing what you guys come up with. That's really, I really can't stress how much I enjoy that, to see these type of tutorials put to work and just showing them off and seeing what you guys do. So hope you get some use out of it. I will talk to you later. Take care.